Welcome to Bahrain for the GT4 International Cup, part of the Bahrain GT Festival. And this is qualifying race 2, about to get underway. We had a very lively hour-long race earlier on. We have the 5-minute countdown almost completed, ready for the formation lap for race 2. A slightly depleted grid because we have lost a BMW from the very back of the grid. David Addison trackside along with John Watson, and Bruce Jones is down on the grid where, before the race gets underway, he has discovered Jérôme Poliquin.
Jérôme Poliquin, your team, ACA ASP, it's grown and grown, and this weekend you've moved away from being the principal, now you're a driver again. Is that great?
Yeah, it's an experience with Thomas. He wanted to share the car with me just for this weekend, so I feel a little bit rusty, but I enjoy a lot during the race. There was a very interesting fight, and I don't know if we'll be back again, but I hope this evening we can finish in the top 6.
It's looking fairly good so far, but in the GT4 International Cup, there's a lot of time on the track, a lot of time for Thomas to learn and for you to feel how unfit you are.
Yeah, it's a very nice competition, especially for young driver. You can see very young driver. We are very quick in GT, and the best example is Jim Pla, which did the season in GT4 with us, and he was second all this stint in GT3 for the first time in the car. So I promise you, most of the guys on the grid are the future of the GT.
Let us see. Thank you very much, Jérôme. Bonne chance.
And Jérôme Poliquin runs ACA ASP, Autosport Promotion, runs that car, runs GT3 cars here this weekend as well within the FIA GT Nations Cup, and a vastly experienced driver. There at the very front of the grid is the Audi on pole, Stephen Palette. This second on the grid, Greg Gilbert, will start. If you saw the earlier race, the driver that finished is the start driver here, and the starting driver from race 1 will do the second stint within this race. So it's an Audi lockout at the front of the grid, and the cars will be released shortly onto the formation lap. Mandatory pit stops. We've got a new gearbox having gone into the KTM of Reinhard Koffler and Konstantin Schürrle, but we've lost the Ricardo van der Ende Julien Piguet BMW. It had an engine change after free practice, had to start at the back of the grid, and then the replacement engine went wrong, didn't it, in the first race, and that's that. Now there is Stephen Palette, who is the man on pole position, and he is ready to go. He's got Greg Gilbert as the opposition on the front of the grid. Second row, the Phoenix around Audi, Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Also the two Santalot cars, just to bear in mind, are running in the Pro-Am rather than Silver Cup competition. In other words, you might not expect them to have the same pace in the second stint when you get the other graded driver on board. 39, Enzo Guibert at the wheel, the car he shares with Gilles Vannelet. That should be another competitive car because it went strongly, the BMW, in race 1.
I mean, the BMW has shown pace, but just unfortunately they've had issues, both mechanical issues, and we just need to see whether what you do in qualifying track position. As we look down at one of the two little Alpines, which have been, I've enjoyed watching them. I think they're just a great little car. I think what a fun little road car that must be.
So you've got one Alpine starting at the back, which had a gearbox problem yesterday. Pierre-Alexandre Jean at the wheel of it. The other car with Antoine Leclerc starting is on the third row of the grid, alongside this BMW with the British-born, now Hong Kong-based driver Dan Wells at the wheel of it. Dan, who was very quick in UK single seater a few seasons back, went to China to ply his trade and has made a decent name for himself. Trouble is, he's dropped off the European radar a little bit. 222 Porsche won the AM Cup in the first race at the last corner of the last lap, when Niki Leutwiler, who will start, dived up the inside of Johan Rosen's Ginetta, and alongside there is the very distinctive Audi that Max Hesse will go first in, that he shares with Gauthier Rodest. There's another of the Phoenix Run cars, that teammate to Nikolai Moller-Madsen and Milan Doccia's car, which was victorious in race 1. Race 1 won by Phoenix. Second was the Pierre-Alexandre Jean-Pierre Sonsenena Alpine up from the back of the grid. And third, the McLaren of Matt Nicol-Jones and Finlay Hutchison, which will start this race in the hands of Matt Nicol-Jones from 9th on the grid. Great variety. If you look down the grid, you've got Audi, you've got Alpine, you've got BMW, there is Porsche, there is Mercedes, there is McLaren, there is Ginetta. Maserati, Aston Martin in the mix as well. The lights go green, the green flags wave. Alain Adon, who is the race director, sends the cars away for the formation lap, ready for qualifying race 2. And they got one formation lap last time, so we anticipate it'll have just been the one, although it has been 2 for GT3 cars.
It has. But the reality is, after the qualifying in the grid position, particularly for the 41 Santa Lock car, we saw a stunning drive earlier in the day by Colletti, and he has got that car. And look at what's going on, a real log jam of cars almost running into each other as they make their way slowly down into turn 1. Some at the back were overrunning those ahead of them and had to take avoiding action, and of course cool tyres. Track conditions are probably at the warmest they're going to be at any point here this weekend, so that's something different yet again. They didn't practice in these conditions, but practicing in one thing, coming in and out of the pits, but then getting into a 1-hour race with a mandatory pit stop between 25 and 35 minutes, driver change as well, and of course the big issue will always be caring for your tyres.
So the cars making their way up towards turn 4. Pirelli tyres, everybody runs on here, and it is going to be on the front of the grid then. Stephen Palette to line up alongside Greg Gilbert, the second row Nikolai Moller-Madsen and Enzo Guibert. Audi's 1, 2 and 3, BMW 4, Alpine 5th for Antoine Leclerc alongside Dan Wells, BMW. 7th on the grid, Nicky Leutwiler's Porsche, and then Max Hesse with the Audi. 9th the McLaren of Matt Nicol-Jones, lining up 10th will be Thomas Drouet in the ACA ASP run Mercedes. 11th on the grid, number 44 Aston Martin, which is going to be started by Matt George alongside Andy Merrick's Mercedes. 13th on the grid is Reinhard Koffler in the KTM alongside Johan Rosen's Ginetta. On the 15th slot is Brent Strom's BMW, possibly to join in Andrew Danilov, but his Porsche retired from race 1 and wasn't on the grid for this race. Then you've got number 72 of Eric Behrens and the Maserati of Piotr Chodzem. And the final full row of the grid is going to be Luke Brahms, McLaren, and Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the Alpine, with missing from the very back the Equerris BMW M4 because that has run out of engine, so that is absent from the back. And as I say, the red Porsche Cayman, which had a drivetrain problem in race 1, wasn't on the grid. The team working to the very last and asking if they can join in from the pit lane if they don't make it out. Of course, the trouble is that the cars are based in another pit lane. They make the pit stops in the main pit lane, but their base, their garages, are in the Oasis pit next to this section of the circuit. So the car's got to get out of that pit lane somehow and into the main pit lane in order to be released into the race.
And of course, the cars that were competing in the Nations Cup are only just trying to clear all their gear from the principal pit lane to enable the GT4 runners to move their gear in and to be able to execute their driver changes. There won't be highly unlikely to change a tire other than through a tire getting cut or a puncture or something of that nature. The field pretty well strung out as they're making their way around the back of the circuit. This is coming through turn 12 into turn 13. So need to try and get the field slightly better bunched. Safety car slowing them all down, and hopefully those at the back of the field will get a bit of a hurry up and get up to those cars to make it, let's say, a representative start and not maybe have to go through the process if it's considered to be an untidy start.
And the fact that they're getting themselves side by side confirms that it is going to be just this one formation lap. The safety car, the pace car as it is, will swing into the pit lane. We will be ready to go racing. It is race 2 for the GT4 International Cup. This is the view from Brett Strom's BMW, the Mark Carr's run squad, the Australian team. That's looking after that car, Thomas Drouet in Jerome Policon's Mercedes, just making sure the belts are tight, ready to go racing as they come off turn 14, ready for the start of race 2, qualifying race 2 for the GT4 International Cup here in Bahrain. Stephen Palette alongside Greg Gilbert at the front of the grid. The second row is Nikolai Moller-Madsen and Enzo Guibert. The lights are red. When the lights change, we will get underway for 60 minutes of GT4 racing, and it's going. A great start made from the third row by the Alpine of Antoine Leclerc. Good start by Enzo Guibert in the BMW as well on the outside of row 2. The Audis are side by side, but at the front of the grid you give a monster toe to everybody else on the run down towards the first corner. They're 3, 4, 5 wide, and who's going to be the real hero? It looks like Matt Nicol-Jones has made a demon start in the McLaren, up into second place as they wriggle their way through. Whoops, I'm afraid the Nicky Leutwiler Porsche bounces off the BMW of Brett Strom there, and there's damage to both.
And there's a load of debris in the middle of the exit of turn 1, so that's got to be cleared away corner workers might be able to get that done without having to revert to a localised yellow flag, but McLaren battling with the Mercedes. Go, and round goes the Alpine. It's been tagged. This is the second time in 2 races that car's been. Is that the same car, the 36 or the 22?
It's the same car, had a spin exactly there in the first race. So Antoine Leclerc this time tagged into it. David Touchepont was turned around in the same car at the same place in the first race. So you're right, it's rather magnetic that as they dive down towards turn 8. And now Matt Nicol-Jones coming under attack a little bit lower down the order there as they turn out of the corner. There's been a real old shuffle though out of turn 1, hasn't there? There is the Alpine with damage. You can see a lot of damage in fact on the back of that car. And so what has happened coming out of turn 1 is a very jumbled order for the next half of the lap as Reinhard Koffler gets up the inside of Matt Nicol-Jones and tags the McLaren. It drops back. Andy Merrick goes off in avoidance. So there, look, leading the way is the Stephen Palette Audi. Second is Enzo Guibert, but up into third by the look of it from 10th on the grid is Thomas Drouet. Amazing first few corners. Fourth now is Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Fifth is about to be Matt Nicol-Jones. Sixth is Matt George in the Aston. Seventh is Andy Merrick. Eighth is Dan Wells. Ninth is Reinhard Koffler. And 10th is Greg Gilbert from the outside of the front row, dropping back as Matt Nicol-Jones gets crowded out by Matt George and Andy Merrick. Very experienced driver these days, Andy. Driver coach as well, comes round the outside, picks up a place. There's another car that's gone way out wide in the background, which I think was Max Hassler's Audi, and up the inside goes Dan Wells to get himself in the BM, up and past the McLaren of Matt Nicol-Jones.
So the McLaren has been right royally shuffled back, has been a bit hip and shoulder somewhere around the middle of the circuit, and the McLaren has been biffed on one side, biffed on the other side, and now on the brake and coming down into the final turn. 36 Alpine, that's the odd damage of the 2 Alpine. To make progress pretty rapidly, having started well back down the field.
There for the back of the grid, Pierre-Alexandre Jean on a mission. This car absolutely flew in race 1. It's flying again now as Greg Gilbert, badly delayed at the start, tries to fight back. Nikolai Moller-Madsen up the inside line of Thomas Drouet, and he goes through. So that's now going to put him up into third place, the winning car from race 1.
Yeah, looked a pretty easy pass, got the draw, the slipstream off the Mercedes coming down into turn 1, and just was a strong move, and there was no question about the Mercedes coming back. Once you've taken the position, you send the message, don't bother, just don't bother.
3 wide there, going out of turn 2 a moment ago. That was all quite spectacular as we had the KTM squabbling with the Alpine and others. And down the pit road is coming the damaged Porsche of Nicky Luckweiler that won the AM category in race 1. Of course, we saw that picking up damage at the very start of the race. So leading the way, Stephen Palette from Enzo Guibert there in the BMW. Moller-Madsen is now third, Thomas Drouet is fourth, fifth is Matt George, sixth Andy Merrick, seventh in the BMW is Dan Wells, eighth Matt Nicol-Jones, ninth of KTM Reinhard Koffler, 10th from second on the grid Greg Gilbert, and 11th already, having started 20th on the grid, is Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the Alpine, and that actually has been shuffled back a little bit out of turn 1, so it was 9th at the start of the lap. It actually came off worse through that sort out we saw at the start of this lap on a lock-up from Pierre-Alexandre Jean. He just makes the corner.
Yeah, gets around, scrambles around the outside there. It is the Porsche damage to the right rear of the car, and is that tyre damage, or is it more like the suspension damage as well?
Replay of the start. Good getaway by Antoine Leclerc. Matt Nicol-Jones made a demon start looking at the McLaren. And then which way does he go? Now, where did Greg Gilbert, the outside of the front row, lose all of the time? Because he was way back, midway around the lap. Just Drouet's view.
You see the McLaren's just ahead, just splitting the field. And at this point, the McLaren just seemed to be... Well, there's the Alpine getting turned round again, as it was in the first race. Back live.
Not yet been told of any investigation for that contact against the Alpine, but fear there might be. And there is Nicky Luckweiler's Porsche Cayman, broken wheel, damage to the car. It's quite an impact there.
Yeah, well, to do that amount of damage to a rim, it's going to go through the chassis, or certainly go through the suspension, potentially damage one of the suspension links, possibly a drive shaft as well. But right now it's Matthew George who set the fastest lap on the race on the second lap, and currently running in 5th place, trying to catch up as quickly as possible to Thomas Drouet in the first of the Mercedes. There you can see that's further down through the field.
Yeah, Andy Merrick, that is, just ahead of Dan Wells, the 2 British drivers together with Matt Nicol-Jones, another of the Brits behind Dan Wells. In fact, now up the inside line, tries to have a go against the Chester-born driver Andy Merrick, whose dad used to be a pretty rapid single-seater racer and then came back in Historics a few years ago. Matt George then ahead of Thomas Drouet, so he's made that place up for 4th. Drouet fading a little bit now because after that demon start he rather lucked into places on the first lap. Now he's falling back behind people that had out-qualified him as they come down towards turn 8. Up front, Stephen Pellet leads the way from Enzo Guibert, but they're both in Pro-Am cars rather than Silver Cup cars. So the leading Silver Cup Audi, Nikolai Moller-Madsen running third, could well be in the box seat.
Yeah, but they're 1.2 seconds behind that second place 3Y technology BMW, so just need to settle down a bit frenetic again in that opening lap. Everybody jockeying for position coming into turn 1, and consequently if you're not on top of your game you will find yourself being shuffled back down through the field. But it is pretty clear that the number 41 Santa Blanca Junior Audi, Stephen Pellet, clearing away almost 3 seconds advantage already. As now the McLaren, now it is beginning to settle down, making and finding its natural pace, getting on the last lap that was 10th position, getting up and around Andy Merritt.
That's right, so Matt Nicol Jones yo-yoing a bit at the moment. There's number 3 Audi that was off the road earlier, Max Hesse, 12th at the start of this lap in the very distinctive car with the white yellow colours. Phoenix Racing, of course, a team we know from GT3, also winning the Nürburgring 24 Hours, the Spa 24 Hours, and very successful in DTM, Hans Moser's team that's based on the opposite side of the road really from the Nordschleife, Nürburgring-based team at Westpath. And so now, riding on board Brett Strong's Australian operated BMW, coming into turn 14, road opens up, straightens out, there's the pit straight. This BMW down in 13th spot at the moment, everybody looks on. But Stephen Pellet, fastest lap of the race, the leader now getting away by 3.6 seconds over Enzo Guibert in second spot, and Nikolai Moller-Madsen just settling into a rhythm, it seems, in third at the moment. He's not really catching the top 2.
No, but it is clearly the 41 Audi that is just stretching its legs, clear air, of course, no disturbance, there's nothing to worry about ahead of them because they're nowhere near yet catching up to the tail of this field. That may happen by the time you get to the round of pit stops, then it'll all be mixed and matched. But certainly the pace of Pellet last lap, the fastest lap on a 2:13.9, his best lap overall 2:13.2 is the fastest lap, and that goes to the 41 Audi.
The Alpine of Antoine Leclerc has just limped into the pit lane after all of that damage. There is 42, so that's Greg Guilvet, who was on the outside of the front row but really dropped out on the opening lap, so he's 9th at the moment. Matt Nicol Jones under attack from Andy Merrick, and now the CMR team has a look at the rear, or what's left of the rear of the Alpine.
That's heavily damaged, you can see.
It was a big hit, wasn't it?
It was a big hit, and also the mechanics of the car are very close to the rear. It's a short body. You can see the diffuser in the car has been heavily damaged, so that car ain't going to be going very much further.
Certainly not in this race, and they don't have much time to turn it round. I mean, the benefit of not sending it back out is you've got more repair time for the final.
Absolutely, I would take the car straight into the garage and start work. Well, they can't take it into this garage. They've got to go back to their pits on the other side of just on this, where the cars have done,
that's
gone
right.
through.
So, in a sense, send it back out, limp it round for half a lap, pull it into the other pit lane, and crack on. I know what you mean, because they need all the time they can get. Now, look at this little battle pack building up. You've got, what, 5 in a line there, as all bits of Alpine are ripped away. So this now is Dan Wells, BMW, Matt Nicol Jones, McLaren, Andy Merrick, Mercedes, Greg Guilvet, Audi, Reinhard Koffler, KTM. And they're all chasing after the 5th place Mercedes of Thomas Drouet.
Drouet had been pretty impressive in the first of these qualifying events earlier today, but now seemingly getting slightly mugged as he comes down into turn 1.
The team that operates that damaged Porsche Cayman also asking the same question: can we go back to the pit lane and repair the car? We're not sure we can make it out for the last race. So that Porsche has also suffered serious damage after a win in race 1.
How do you get the car from the pit lane around into it? Because you've got to basically, there's one way in and one way out of the pit lane, so you'll be maybe going against the stream of traffic that would be coming in, so it's going to be a difficulty for those teams. But look, Drouet having to go a little bit cautious.
Andy Merrick under attack there. Look at turn 4, because he's got Greg Guilvet crawling all over the back of him. The Audi's the outside line, but Andy Merrick, who, remember, has raced prototypes for Aston Martin, he's raced GT cars for Bentley, knows a trick or two. He's done a lot of racing since he came into Northwest Formula Ford and then Formula 3, but a single-seater gun to begin with. Yet another driver that's found a good career in GT racing. Reinhard Koffler likewise crawling all over the back of the Greg Guilvet Audi. An incident in turn 4 between the Alpine and 42 Greg Guilvet is under investigation from the first lap.
Not surprised, not surprised. Andy Merrick under pressure. from the Audi down into turn 10. Merrick has to concede because he saw that the Audi was so close to him he couldn't afford to close the door within contact and damage. But the little KTM that's running behind these two that may end up ultimately being the beneficiary because it's capable of running at their pace, and it only needs that moment of opportunity as Andy Merrick just flicks the nose of the Mercedes one way, then pulls back in. But in doing so, has he opened up the door for the KTM to slip up alongside? It's going to be, no, not quite here, into turn 12.
Remember on the grid I mentioned that the red Porsche Cayman of Andrew Daniluk was missing. As you see the KTM dive up the inside and go through, does it? Side by side, the KTM will go through, but then the Mercedes has got the grunt as they run side by side. The move will come at the end of the straight. The Porsche has joined in. It's a test session this for it. It's 4 laps down, but the car is in the race. That's the delectable red Cayman. Now Koffler got the move in the corner, whoops, the bodywork flies up, the top opens up as he brakes, the front of the car opens. That's how you get out. You push the bodywork forward. Koffler's going to have to pit, but as he hit the brakes, suddenly the bodywork lifted and Reinhard Koffler comes into the pit lane. So that's one of the more unlikely reasons for a sudden pit stop. The bodywork is shot forward.
I mean, that's got to be a first in my experience to see a cockpit which is unique in GT racing, for it to pop open. You almost think that Andy Merrick stuck his hand out of the side of the Mercedes and pushed the button, but clearly not. It was just a failure on the locking of the mechanism, and up it popped. I mean, can you imagine what he was thinking when he saw all that happening?
My first thought when I saw it move was he hit something and the bodywork had compressed, but he hasn't hit a thing. It's just popped up.
Well, maybe he hit the button, maybe accidentally in the cockpit, the release button, which would obviously have access to from the driving seat. Remember, you're sitting in a driver's seat with your seat belts on, so wherever the access button is to release the front of the bonnet of the hood.
Well, weird. And in also has come 250 BMW. That's Brett Strom. So the pit lane's getting busy, and we've not got a pit window open yet. So we have got 4 or 5 cars all in strife, and there is Reinhard Koffler having had the shock of his life. Suddenly, bodywork pops open, and that I think is the race run. He's getting out of the car. Scrutineer is there, having a look at it, but I think the fear is you need to check that. We can't send you back out. So the way they're looking at it, rather than just slamming it shut, suggests it might be some sort of hydraulic drama that's caused it to suddenly spring open.
Well, it may be hydraulics, but there's got to be a mechanical mechanism that would be the cause of all this.
There you go.
Front spring. What the heck's happened there? The front suspension has come apart.
Crikey.
The damper appears to have failed, and that's maybe what's caused it. When the spring was released, the damper, the shaft on the damper is actually broken. There you can see the damper body, but the shaft is attached to the mounting. So the whole thing's come apart, and as a consequence of that, that's what's popped, and it must have released or damaged the mechanism that keeps the cockpit lid in position. Well, write that one down. I mean, talk about book of excuses. I mean, that's another one that even Tim Schenken couldn't have thought of.
As the leader, Stephen Bellette, goes across the line from Enzo Guibert. Great shame that we've lost the KTM, because it's a good, quick little car, that. Nikolai Moller-Madsen runs third. Fourth is Matt George, doing a really good job in the Aston Martin ahead of Thomas Rouet. Dan Wells living up to his pre-race Bill Matter, sixth ahead of Matt Nicol-Jones. Greg Gilbert is eighth. Andy Merrick is ninth and 10th. From the derriere of the grid is Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the Alpine, the surviving Alpine. But again, if you think about the grid for the final, and you do that by taking points for where you finish in the qualifying races, you're going to have the Audi potentially of Moller-Madsen and of Dodger at the front, and an awful lot of the others with a good and a bad result, because fortunes have really changed in this second race.
Yes, the remaining Alpine in the race really not running at the representative pace. It got overtaken very easily indeed by the BMW, by the Audi. Coming up into turn 4, you can see the Alpine slow as it makes its way around the track. Garage 59 have got a bit of hospitality.
And there is Max Hesse coming under attack from Pierre-Alexandre Jean. So this now is a change, in fact, for 10th place. The Audi is nipped ahead of the Alpine. So although the Alpine has made progress, it's not going as strongly in this race as it was in the first.
No, and we saw that the other Alpine, the sister car, got tagged from the rear, so its side. Sister car had good pace, then it seems to have dropped away. We don't have an explanation from the pit lane as to what the cause may be.
Now that's initially a good view, and a very daunting way of spending your afternoon. It's not for me.
Absolutely no way in this world you ever get me sitting in the seat, let alone lifted and dropped like that. Here is third place finish racing by Moller-Madsen. 5.6 seconds behind the leader, but more crucially, just 1.7 seconds behind the second place 3 via BMW.
Now, at the moment, it's pretty calm up at the front, and it remains Stephen Colletti that leads the way. But, as I say, the Pro-Am cars, first and second, won't necessarily have the same pace in the second stint as the Silver Cup cars. So the third place there, it is green and white Audi of the Phoenix team, is still very well placed. Matt George fourth, that's Pro-Am. Thomas Drouet fifth to give way to Jerome Ponicon. Now there, isn't that a lovely sight? The splendid Red Cayman.
It would be if I was on the racetrack, but not sitting in the pit lane.
Testing, sorting out the problems of race one, getting ready for a heroic drive in the final. Andrew Danilov behind the wheel of that car. And they ventured in late, but then another pit stop, presumably just to check things. But I do fear it's not a very happy car.
So there is our race leader into turn 4 on his 8th lap.
Stephen Colletti is by 3.797 seconds leading the way. It all got a bit frantic to begin with, but it's certainly calmed down now.
And currently there's not an awful lot of action going on. Most action is around 6th and 7th position with Academy's Motorsport McLaren and the second of the BMWs, so that's only just under a second. Elsewhere it's second plus, the gap between all the cars.
That's right, as you look at Stephen Colletti sprinting here out of turn 8, leading. The gap's coming down, I would say, between second and third.
It is.
Guibert to Moller Madsen. Oh, except it, my eyes fail me, has gone up by a fraction within sector 1, so just looked as though they were a bit nearer to each other on that exit of turn 8. BMW, which makes a great noise, howls its way down now towards turn 11. A drive-through for number 42. That's Greg Gilbert for causing a collision. So the 8th place Audi that's lost a whole heap of time anyway from being on the front row of the grid, having a drive-through penalty for causing a collision.
And the damage was pretty severe because the Alpine is out,
yeah,
and there'll be a substantial bill to put that car back onto the track for the third and final race here this afternoon for these GT4 cars.
Right, so Moller Madsen, there he is, pressing on as he comes now up through turn 13.
You're just watching the GT4 cars and thinking back to how GT3, you can see just how much more movement there is in the car, not just in terms of the amount of the lack of grip of the juice grip, but just the horizontal, so the vertical movement, you know, the springing and damping. These cars are much softer than their grown-up GT3 brothers or sisters.
And there is Matt George charging along, doing what he has to do, which is to get as high up the order as he can for his co-driver. The second stint, James Holder. There he goes, the Generation AMR Aston Martin down towards turn 1. Colletti, Guibert, Moller Madsen is the top 3 at the moment.
Audi into the pit lane, didn't quite catch which one it is.
It's 42 for the drive-through.
There you go.
There he is, Greg Gilbert. So, takes the penalty early, takes it on the chin.
Yeah, the trouble is he's going to have to be coming back into the pit lane in about another 6 or 7 minutes for the mandatory driver change. So that's a double penalty, and it'll be compounded by the fact that he's going to be going back out again and within 5 or more minutes back into the pit lane.
Here's the replay of the incident. There's the Audi, biff into the back of the Alpine, turns it round, and effectively puts it out of the race because of the damage.
Ironically, it didn't do any damage to the Audi. You can see the front of the car coming down into turn 1. Where was that damage? Well, it would have been maybe the splitter. Whatever it was, the Audi marches on in spite of that drive-through penalty, virtually undamaged.
Yeah. And
it was the poor little Alpine that was absolutely mullered and out of the race of consequence.
That's right. So as we have the Thomas Drouet Mercedes pounding on, that currently is in 5th place. The leading AM class car, incidentally, is the Maserati, Piotr Hodgson at the wheel of it. This is Drouet's view in 5th spot, playing catch-up, but the AM's being led 12th overall by the Scuderia Villoba Corsa Maserati, Piotr Hodgson at the wheel of it at the moment. There's Drouet there, tries to fend off Wells and Matt Nicol-Jones behind him. Andy Merritt's dropping back a little bit, isn't he? The Bullet Racing Mercedes has dropped away, having been part of that battle earlier on.
Don't know why, but the car, I mean, basically didn't look as if there was anything wrong with it. Sometimes you get into a battle and maybe in doing so you might do a little bit more wear and tear on, particularly on the tyre. This tyre degradation that is always going to be a feature of this Bahrain International Circuit. It is a circuit which is run temperatures normally extremely high, and the hottest part of the afternoon here now. So everybody being cautious. If you overuse your tyre early on, then the penalty will be you lose time and grip.
So down they come into the right-hander at turn 14, and it is then Stephen Palet leading. There is Andy Merrick in the Bullet Racing car. He and Stephen Patrick, British drivers, but the team operates under a Spanish licence. That's where Dave Price lives these days.
Yeah, it's prepared down just outside Marbella.
Yeah, that's where team principal Dave Price is based. Over the line shoots the Bullet Racing Mercedes. If you're wondering why Bullet Racing, it's because Stephen Patrick liked the Steve McQueen movie and thought, well, so take that as the name, so Bullet Racing it is. Max Hesse behind him for Phoenix Racing in the Audi. Those two currently running in 8th and 9th places.
I've seen a lot of movies. I suppose I've seen a few car movies. Interesting thought, called it under some other, well, legendary car movie, as Bullet was.
Yeah. So Stephen Patrick will do the second stint in that car. Now their 10th is Pierre-Alexandre Jean. It's like a different car, isn't it, compared to the first race? I mean, its pace is nothing like what we saw in race 1.
No, but it also looks like a dinky toy when you see it on track. It is so much, physically so much smaller than all those around it. You'll almost sit in the car and think, well, you get an AMG Mercedes GT4 coming alongside you and you think, oh my goodness, I mean, how big is this?
That's another of the Mercedes. Number 72 is in the hands of Eric Behrens, a regular in the Swedish GT Championship, and this is the AM class lead battle because Piotr Hodson is ahead of him in the Maserati, but the lead of the class is about to change, I fear. That Maserati does look a big car.
It looked clumsy coming through turn 6s and 7s, and the Mercedes, a much neater package, a much more contemporary package than the Maserati. What the Maserati has got is a horse of an engine, and it's got a load of torque and a load of top-end power, and it just, you can see an acceleration. There's nothing the Mercedes could do to even match it, but only under braking and under road holding and cornering can it get close.
So the two of them nose to tail as they come through turn 10 then. The Mercedes right on the back of the Maserati, but no, in the straight line again, so the Maserati just pulls away a little bit further. Eric Behrens getting a bit frustrated here because he knows that at certain parts he's got the advantage, under braking being one of them and through the twiddly bits being another.
Wonder some of the problems Andy Merrick is having. He's just got to notice that he must respect track limits, which might confirm what I was suspecting is that the grip in that Bullet Racing Mercedes-Benz is just going away, and that's why he's running very wide on some of the track areas, some of the exits of the corners.
Could well be, could well be. So the pit window to come in a couple of minutes' time. Way wide goes Eric Behrens with his Mercedes. 95 seconds, incidentally, the pit stop time, line to line. And up front, it is Stephen Palet still leading the way. He's done quite a bit of Porsche racing of late for Stephen. And 2 seconds clear of Enzo Guibert. 7 seconds back now is Nikolai Moller-Madsen. I'm surprised, given that Moller-Madsen is a very quick driver, that he's not matching the pace of the other two, unless he's just running to a pace.
Well, he could be running to a pace because obviously they've got one more race at this GT4 series here this evening. So whether he decides that I'm going to run at the pace I am and just hand the car over to give him a decent car rather than overuse the tyre, which is maybe what's happened in the case of the 33 Bullet Racing Mercedes. So you hand the car over to your teammate with significantly less amount of grip, wouldn't go down maybe particularly well.
Possibly so, as the field now accelerates towards turn 4. So still the AMs together. In other words, you've got Hodson ahead of Behrens, and then Greg Gilbert 13th after that drive through. There is Lisette Brahms, is at the wheel of the McLaren. That car currently down in 15th spot. Luke Brahms, Lisette's husband, will take it over. Son Max runs the GT4 European Championship. He's the organiser of this International Cup as well. So the Brahms family totally imbued with GT4 racing. The pit window will be open in 40 seconds time. There is Stephen Patrick thinking about what he needs to do.
Well, I just wonder, is Bullet Racing going to bring that 33 Mercedes in at the earliest opportunity and hand it over to Stephen Patrick? Clearly with that warning about track limit abuse, Andy Merrick will be happy to out of the car, I thought.
Hodson still under attack, but now it's from Greg Gilbert. So the Audi has split the two AMs, and Piotr Hodson still having to fend off a car, but it's a different car now. It's one out of Pro-Am, not AM, and Greg Gilbert from the outside of the front row. Disappointing stint, really, because of losing places, and then the penalty dives up the inside, gets the place back, but of course he's only there because of the drive-through earlier. Pit window is now open, waiting to see number we've had a lot of retirements actually. We've lost 5 cars already, and one didn't even take the start to add to that. In comes 36, interestingly, Pierre-Alexandre Jean to give way to Pierre Sonsinena, who was very impressive indeed in the first race.
Let's hope this pit stop changes the fortunes for the Alpine team. There's the Maserati also coming in, having been under pressure for some time from Mercedes behind. It's now peeling off into the pit lane. The Alpine runs down to its box. It's more or less at the end of the pit lane. Always prefer to be near the end of a pit lane when you do your changes. I don't know why it always seems that it is marginally quicker. It shouldn't, but it always gives you that sense.
So there it is. Lisette Brahms to give way to Luc in Piotr in the Maserati. Brother Antoine will take over, but I'm a bit concerned about this Alpine. Its pace is nothing like what we expected.
Again, work around the rear of the car. You can see there's 2 or 3 engineers all, well, they're just checking tyre pressures as well as just maybe checking tyre, well, certainly the tyre pressures are being adjusted.
It was a gearbox drama that really hurt the car as well as a puncture within the qualifying session. That's why
still working on the left rear of the car, so the door's now closed and the Alpine Ultimate with issues gets fired up. A little turbocharged 4-cylinder engine sitting in the back of the Alpine, waiting for the indication to allow it to go.
1 minute and 35, remember, is the pit stop time. Here is the AM battle raging on as away goes the Alpine, but there Johan Rosen in the Ginetta now is ahead of Eric Behrens. So with the Maserati pitting, that's the lead battle for the AM class on the track, and 2 new leaders, because Eric Behrens has the lead and then he loses the lead to Johan Rosen.
The Alpine, very good pit stop, literally 1 second over the 95-second minimum amount of time, so that's why we saw it being held. So the team have turned that car around as quickly as they certainly can do, and let's see whether the 36 Alpine can make any further progress.
In the remaining 32 minutes of the race, as down now towards turn 1 goes the Maserati. In comes Matt Nicol-Jones to give way to Finlay Hutchison, who was impressive in his stint in the first race at the start of the day. And the McLaren has been there or thereabouts, but not quite as competitive as I thought it might have been, actually. In comes Max Hesse as well. They were 25 and 30 seconds respectively away from the leaders. The Phoenix team brings in one of its 2 cars. Academy Motorsports brings in its McLaren. And more track limit warnings, one for Max Hesse, who was just pitted, and another one for Andy Merrick.
Oh, where did that happen, I wonder? So clearly the 33 Bullet Racing Mercedes not performing at the level it would normally do. We see the McLaren in for that change, so Finlay Hutchison will be in the car, the belts. McLaren, of course, made a monocell. It's a carbon fiber monocoque chassis, unlike production cars, even the Ginetta, which is a tubular frame.
There is the Swedish driver Peter Larsson about to take over from Johan Rosen. Matt Nicol-Jones has done up the belt, now the netting, and now closes the door on the McLaren 570S for Finlay Hutchison. Matt, very rapid driver, as I say, runs the team. These guys get ready to release that car as there Johan Rosen goes and has a word with Peter Larsson being strapped into the Ginetta. On his way is now, sorry, on her way is Goshia Rodest, who's taken over from Max Hesse. Finlay Hutchison goes and should stay ahead on the pit stops. Yep, and by being at pit out, just keeps on accelerating.
Good stop, just got ahead of the Audi. It wouldn't have been an easy pass because that car did show again good pace in the earlier race today. So it gets clear and clears. Number 3.
It's a bit tight, that. Bit tight because the McLaren's pit stop was 1 minute and 40 and 1 minute and 36 for the Audi, so 4 seconds slower in the pits. It only just got out ahead.
It absolutely just got through, and that's all it had to do. I mean, once it's ahead, then hopefully we'll stay ahead as what was the 4th place Audi comes into the pit lane, and then we will see, because that's a strong driver lineup.
Yeah. There's Milan Doncic to take over from Nikolai Malum-Madsen.
Where that car was 14 or just under 15 seconds behind the leading Santa Lock Audi. Whether a single driver, Milan Doncic, can make up the difference in time is a big ask. We're just coming up to the halfway point of this race.
is a slightly phony gap in as much as you cross the timing line in the pit, so he's already going slower, isn't he? So the gap widens while he's going slower. So in real terms, it might be a little bit less than that, but I still think they could win this race because they're going up against, in the Pro-Am cars, the slower driver in the second stint, which you'll see. Now there is Peter Larson, fresh into the Ginetta, battling with Anthony Hodson. This is for Am Honours, don't forget. We saw the battle in the first stint, it's happening again, and now Anthony Hodson, who is the quicker of the two brothers, trying to fend off number 51 Ginetta, Peter Larson, the redoubtable shape of Peter, having replaced in the car Johan Rosen.
Well, the little Ginetta being just unable to match the grunt from the Maserati out of turn 8, but certainly it is sufficiently nimble as you go back. I haven't seen this for a while. The lead car with a 1.2 second advantage over the second place BMW. Not a huge amount of comfort zone. That gap has actually been coming down bit by bit. BMW has been quick in the last lap or so. Certainly on the last lap, it was but almost a second quicker than the lead Audi.
And we're on lap number 14. We've got still half the race to go, just under. And as you start to get different drivers into cars, we'll see what their respective pace is like. So things are going to start to shuffle around potentially. As there is number 41, Stephen Palette, and I reckon that gap is continuing to come down. It certainly was down in sector 1 of this lap to Enzo Guibert. Do they come in this time? Palette quicker than his co-driver, Guibert quicker than his co-driver, so they stay out to do another lap. Over the timing line they go.
So the gap just 1.3 seconds between first and second place. And I think both of these cars will be pit lane bound because we've only got 28 minutes or so of this pit lane window being open, and they won't be able to do more than a single lap. So BMW has hunted down the lead Audi successfully as the 33 Mercedes ultimately comes in pretty late in its run likewise.
So down the pit road comes Andy Merrick to give way to Stephen Patrick. Track limit warnings, of course, having befallen Andy. Maybe, as John was suggesting, it has been a difficult car to drive, but the Mercedes comes in, and from Stephen Patrick's point of view, it's a good idea having Andy Merrick with him because he can learn a lot from the experienced British driver. Stephen Patrick rushes round to the side of the car, wrenches open the door, out steps Andy Merrick, in gets Stephen Patrick, windscreen cleaned of all the dead insects. There in the background, leaning on the tyre trolley, is Dave Price. And there is the 42 Audi back in. It's had a drive-through. This is its scheduled pit stop, its regulation pit stop for Greg Gilvaire now to give way. So it's going to be Fabien Michel that takes over number 42. 41 is going to go on the round of pit stops to Michel Blanchemont. And Stephen Palette still having to fend off Enzo Guibert, 1.3 seconds. It's not a very big comfort zone at all, as John was suggesting a couple of laps ago.
No, it's not, and that's going to be a tight pit stop for these two cars, for the centre lock Audi and for the 3x Technology BMW. It'll be really, this race could be won or lost by the pit stops. Got a 95-second minimum amount of time you're allowed to be in the pit lane, so anything over that could work to the value or the favour of one of these two cars.
Absolutely, and that gap has come down under braking. So is this the lap on which Stephen Palette comes in? I think he's going to have to because he's running out of time. So yep, leader is in and second place will go with him. So down the pit road they come. The top two at the end of lap number 15, Stephen Palette and Enzo Guibert for Audi and BMW teams respectively, down the pit road now.
So keep an eye on these two teams to see who can turn their car around. Unless there is any issue, I would have thought they'd both do pretty much 95 or 6 or 7 second stops in and out.
Yeah, they're well-drilled teams.
Well, good teams. Yeah. Centerlock and 3x Technology. Both teams. The BMW is slightly further down the pit lane, so therefore shorter run on the limiter before it get back on the throttle as the Centerlock team driver change takes place. Likewise with the BMW.
So Gilles Vannelet, Clio champion, GT3 champion, French GT champion, he will take over the BMW, and there Michel Blanchemont is going to be strapped into number 41. Sansalot, the team that we've seen doing a good job of late in GT3, winning at Spa 24 Hours, for example, in the past, as well as in GT4, operating the Audi that did lead. And this is the danger car. This is Milan Doccia now. He was third in that first stint. Can the car take over the lead on the pit stops? Doubt it. Can it take over the lead on the second stint? Very possibly, very likely. So that's the car that's the real danger to these two in the pit lane at the moment. there is Milan Doncha making his way out of turn 14. There is Enzo Guibert ready to go. Sorry, Gilles Vannelet now in the Enzo Guibert car. Michel Blanchimont is on his way. Go, go, go.
Oh, come
Gilles
on, get
Vannelet.
it fired up. Hasn't got it fired up. Waiting, the Audi will be coming down as the Audi's gone through.
So there's the leading Santalot car. Look in the background. Here comes Milan Doncha. So this is it. The top three are all going to bunch up. This car's up to proper pace. There are going to be gaps, but with 25 minutes on the clock, give or take, we've got a proper race on for the top 3 places now.
So the lead car was 2 seconds over the 95 seconds. The second place car 5 seconds over, and third place just 2 seconds.
So down through turn 1, it is Blanchimont from Vannelet, and then chasing on behind now is Milan Doncha. There's number 37 into the race. Philippe Cadore has taken over from Dan Wells. He's also doing the historic races here, Philippe Cadore, the very wealthy Hong Kong businessman, now turning into a real petrol head. He's got some nice road cars. Now he's going racing with increasing regularity, driving with David Clark in his Porsche in the Classic Challenge races here. Right, this is the leader, Michel Blanchimont. Down, whoop, sideways, throws away the lead. On his outlap, loses it, and that undoes at a stroke all the good work from Stephen Colletti, and it gift wraps the lead to Gilles Vannelet.
Well, an unforced error, and the consequence is you spin around. Not only do you lose the advantage of being the lead car, but you may well have done a little bit of damage to your rear tyres as a consequence. Just getting caught out, conditions different to those that they ran on this morning. These tyres have already done the best part of 35 minutes before the driver change took place. Just watch and see what happens. Coming down into turn 8, and well, hard to explain, just simply the back end got away.
Yeah,
Wasn't on top of him.
lead lost, and so now rather red-faced Michel Blanchimont tries to regroup and get on with this before he gets caught by Milan Doncha, who is getting closer in the background. So straight away, Gilles Vannelet into the lead of the race, got the indicator on, but the experienced French driver leads the pack. Blanchimont there in second place as they come towards us with Milan Doncha doing the chasing, and as I say, he is in the Silver Cup, where you've got 2 evenly matched drivers rather than Pro-Am where there's a bronze and a silver. So in real terms, he ought to be able now to get up onto the back of Michel Blanchimont, former touring car racer as well as GT racer. He's driven not only in French GT4 but on occasions in the Blancpain GT Sports Club for the gentlemen racers with GT3 machinery. There is Pierre Sonsinena in the Alpine having a go at Gauthier Rodest in the yellow Audi down towards turn 14. This is for 9th on the road, and through goes the Alpine. Little puff of smoke as he locks up, goes a little bit wide up the curb. Pierre Sonsinena hops back onto the circuit.
Yeah, but the trouble is, ran too wide too early in the exit, gives the Audi the opportunity to come back, and there's a little bit more straight line performance. The Alpine opting to stay on the left-hand side of the track down into turn 1, which will not give him any advantage unless he can get ahead under braking, but no, he can't, because the Audi is good in its brake and it's late in its brake, so slightly compromised on the outside of the track. And that was good use of the circuit by the Audi to keep the Alpine from making that counter-attack to get back into position.
And that is Finlay Hutchison having a go against Philippe Cadore for 6th place. McLaren through on the inside line, so Cadore gives him racing room, and Finlay Hutchison is a man on a mission. He is coming through. Through he comes. So Philippe Cadore then drops back 1 spot. That's putting him into now 7th place, and Gauthier Rodest back ahead of Pierre Sonsinena. The two of them absolutely nose to tail. The Alpine almost pushing the Audi as they come down towards turn 8. Wide in, tight out might be Sonsinena's plan here, but Gauthier Rodest for the moment hangs on to that place.
Yeah, knows how to use the track, knows how to use her car to advantage. Alpine, you can see clearly quicker out of turn 8, but now on the outside of the circuit, and you just don't want to hang out there because it's dirty. Those curbs are aggressive, they'll unsettle the car. Made the cutback, but there he is. Indeed, Doncha get ahead of Michel Blanchimont. He did. So that's a pass for position.
Absolutely. Don't forget that number 5 Audi anyway leads the Silver Cup, but he's now up to 2nd overall, and so Milan Doncha was at the start of this lap 5.9 seconds behind Gilles Vannelet. This was the Rodest versus Sonsinena battle.
Watch the undercut. See the way that the Alpine just tucks in, so neat and tidy and so efficient.
Great drive.
Just immediately that initial throttle picks up and drives out of the corner, has gained the advantage back again. Whether it can sustain it further around the lap, we'll wait and see until they come on start-finish line.
So the leaders go through, and it is 6 seconds then between Vanderlei and Doncher. And that was a slower lap by the Audi because of the overtake. So now he's got a clear road ahead of him, and Doncher can press on. Blancpain is trying to stay with him. In 4th place there is Jerome Policon in the Mercedes. In 5th place it is James Holder in the Aston Martin, doing a good job, but about to be caught by Finlay Hutchison. 6th in the McLaren. 7th is Philippe Caduri. 8th now is Pierre Sancinena. 9th is Gauthier Rodest. 10th Stephen Patrick in the Bullet Mercedes in the background. So Vanderlei versus Doncher for 6 seconds to be made up in 20 minutes. It should be on that, shouldn't it?
From what we saw in the first race this morning, you would have to say yes. But the pace that the BMW is running at, I mean, to take 6 seconds out when they're both running approximately within a tenth of a second of each other when they get clear laps, it's going to be a big ask. What may again be the factor is coming into traffic, some of the traffic that's going to be lapped. You have to look to those opportunities to try and make the best of it. But right now, Finlay Hutchinson making the best of the McLaren. He tries to find a way down the inside of James Holder in the Aston Martin.
Good move through on the outside at 7, the inside at 8. Job done. So Finlay Hutchinson goes by. James Holder, ever improving driver, slots onto the tail. Remember, of course, that here Hutchison is a Silver Cup racer, whereas James Holder is a Pro-Am, and he's the Am, the Pro having been Matt George in the earlier stint in the race. 18.5 minutes on the clock as they turn now out of turn 10. Aston goes a little bit wide there.
So we're just feeling the effects of a tyre that's now run for 2/3 of this race. There is the lead BMW, and the gap still just over the 6 seconds. They're now coming onto the straight. Great to see what that gap is going to be, or coming down, I should say, to turn 13 down into 14. So the gap, 6 seconds, and the Milan Doncher needs to be taking sort of lumps almost out of that 6 second advantage if he's going to make any further progress, with 17 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Comes across start-finish line, so we'll get that gap, and probably going to be somewhere around about 5 and a bit seconds. Not going to be a huge amount of difference. So Milan Doncher comes past, what is it? Oh, 4.8 seconds, more than I thought. Certainly took over a second of the advantage of the race leader out on that last lap, lap 18.
So the gap coming down, as you see there, number 39 BMW in the lead of the race. Gilles Vanderlei sprinting his way now out of turn 3. 4.8 coming down. There is the chasing Audi in the background. Vanderlei would like to win the race, of course, but he would also like to win his class, and as long as he stays ahead of the blue-nosed Audi there in 3rd place, then that will be the case. So even if it's second in the race, a class win would still be going his way. The Silver Cup Audi chasing on, bringing down that gap. 17 minutes of the race to go. The pit stop of number 72, Eric Behrens and Mats Ek Tidstrand, is under investigation because it's 89 seconds, which is not 95.
Yeah, Blancpain in the Audi that had led this race, falling back. It's now 2.7 seconds behind 2nd place. Phoenix Racing Milan Doncher. The danger will be that the 88 ACA ASP Mercedes-Benz, currently 6.5 seconds behind, might, in the 16 or so minutes remaining, be able to get into a position to make that a possible podium for the top 3.
Jerome Policon certainly is pressing on, catching Blancpain. And this is Jerome's view. Traces his origins all the way back to Formula 4 and 1600, in the days when there was a really competitive French championship in the 1980s. Formula 3, Formula 3000s, sports cars, one-mate Renaults, GT cars, and then, of course, a team owner as well as a driver. This is out of turn 12 now, up towards the tighter right at turn 13.
I mean, normally you never see a Mercedes having to work as hard as this one is doing, but that's because we normally see it on a GT3,
yeah.
But this is GT4 with a significant amount less of aerodynamic and rubber grip. So the car is moving around considerably more, but still a great turnkey car. Currently 4th place, 6.4 seconds behind 3rd place.
Number 72, I mentioned a moment ago, short on its pit stop. It gets a stop-go penalty of 6 seconds to make up the difference. Right, let's ride with the Mercedes. Let's have a look at the Bahrain International Circuit, John.
Right, come across start-finish line. In these GT4 cars, not a huge amount of difference in top speed. The difference is under braking capacity and obviously under the level of grip and handling you get from the aero. So on the brakes all the way down into, is going to be second gear in my view. You turn in, it's better here to turn in slowly and make your apex than get the clean run to make the cut for turn 2, and then to get back into position to straight line the exit of turn 3. Then run all the way up here, still doing about 210 kilometers per hour before you get on the brakes for turn 4. Ease the car in because you don't want to overrun the corner. It's a funny camber change that drops away from you there. Then immediately you're into turn 5. Then you've got to get off the throttle into turn 6. You have to wait. And then again you're struggling to get the car straight to make turn 7 without going way wide off the exit on the outside of 7. Then slow the car down, get the car turned in. Many times you'll see cars missing that apex by a country mile. Getting traction off turn 8, ultra important, because that'll give you a good drive up the hill. And then you come to this little curve of turn 9. Always one of those parts of the racetrack easy to overdrive, because immediately you're into the top of turn 10. Again, you must make that apex if you want a good, clean, strong exit. You can breathe a moment now along this straight between turn 10 and the entry into turn 11. Turn 11, one of those corners that tight, then opens up on the exit to give you a good exit speed. But get the nose in again, then you can release the steering and let the car flow out to the edge of the track. A natural curve will bring you back in to the left-hand side of the track to then cut back for turn 12. Should be flat out. Well, it will be flat out if you're GT3 car. Then on the brakes again into turn 14 to come onto the second quickest part of this racetrack. Again, it is imperative to get that car straightened up. The exit of all these corners are critical to the straight line speed you will achieve. So running down the hill into turn 14, get on the brakes, probably around about 130 meters, down 3 gears, make your apex, catches up to the tail of the 41 Audi, and it is now under real danger because the 88 Mercedes, to me, with the pace it's running right now, the last lap for that 41 was a 2 minutes 20 against the 2:17 for the Mercedes. And what is wrong with Michel Blancpain? Has he got a problem, or is there just no grip left in that Audi's tires?
I think you've got an AM against a pro, having it as simple as that. Blancpain gives way really to Policon. He has to give him room because that Mercedes has been hunting him down, charges through. Don't forget, Blancpain's already had his spin on his outlap, which wouldn't have done his rear tyres any good, as he said at the time, John. But Jérôme Policon is somebody that has raced at a very high level in single-seater racing in his youth. He's a proper professional driver, and Blancpain is a quick AM. So Jérôme Policon catches and passes. Fascinating to ride with him on that lap and to see where he was gaining the time.
Yeah, I mean, he was just quicker all over the lap. I mean, it wasn't just one part of it. What's interesting now is Finlay Hutchinson in the 5th place McLaren. It's now closing down onto that, what is now 4th place Michel Blancpain Audi. So it's going to be a painful lap or two for the Audi. It knows that the McLaren is going to have just more natural pace. And Finlay Hutchinson was impressive in the opening round of this 3-race event, this qualifying event going on, and he's catching up. You can see just how much he's caught up even in the space of this lap.
And there, 37 BMW, Philippe Kaddouri goes 8th at the expense of James Holder, who gets the place back on the inside line. So you've got 2 quick AMs here going toe-to-toe. Yeah,
I mean, Aston Martin V8 and a straight 6 BMW, but look, the squirt of the BMW, slightly better position on the track to get that drive down. Clearly he's able to, the BMW is going to spin. Is he going to? He managed to hold it. Looked like the back end was going to take over the front. The old pendulum effect almost succeeded, but he kept it going in the right direction.
This is for the race lead. Another BMW under attack. Gilles Vannelet now being given a hard time by Milan Doncha. We've got 11 minutes to go, and Gilles Vannelet then leads this second qualifying race in the GT4 International Cup, but only just. Milan Doncha right there behind him. Can he get a toe? Can he make the move down at turn 1? Let's see. They will go through now with, 4 laps to go, and down towards the braking zone. You're still on the accelerator at this point. You're still building speed. A flash of the lights from Doncha to say, look, I'm quicker. I'm in a different class. Give me the room. Give me the room. He looks on the inside line, and Gilles Vannelet would quite like to win this race outright, and thus he hangs on to the advantage.
And he did the right thing. He gave Milan Doncha room if he was going to make a commitment, because if they hadn't done so, there would have undoubtedly been contact. So using your mirrors and realizing I'm in a race in my own category, I can win this overall, but what's more important, to try and win it overall and maybe end up with a damaged car, or to say, well, look, you are physically quicker than me, you've been catching me, caught on by nearly 7 seconds in the space of half the driver's stint. So it may well see a few more corners, and this Audi will take the lead from the BMW.
This is turn 8. Up the inside goes Milan Doncha. There's a gap, but it's quite a brave place to try, because if it doesn't work, it puts you on the outside line for the next sequence. The kink at turn 9, the sharp left at turn 10, where we've seen lots of people getting it wrong over the course of the weekend, and a good defence this being put in from Vanderlei.
Yeah, but it's also, the BMW runs wide for the second time down at turn 10, but it is got good traction off these corners. So Doncha's having to be patient. It's easy to become a little bit frustrated, because you know you've caught the car that you're going to overtake for the lead of the race, and sometimes you want it to be at the earliest opportunity, but you need to be patient.
So Gilles Vanderlei, 59 years of age, Clio Cup champion. He's raced in French GT, American Le Mans, just about every GT category going. He was an FIA GT3 European champion in its very early days, and is still just leading the race, with Jerome Policon now third, having got himself through. Finlay Hutchinson is fourth, Blancpain fifth, and Pierre Sonsinena in the Alpine is now in sixth spot.
Jerome Policon is going to have his mirrors full of the McLaren as we go back to this battle for the lead down the hill into turn 14. Doncha has another little look, nothing he can do. The BMW seems to have that ability to get off a corner more quickly. In this occasion, it's the Audi that does a better job, but watch for the BMW straight line performance. It's just going to manage to pull a couple of car lengths. Frustration for Doncha, but this time he's better placed on the straight in the slipstream. He can maybe think about making a pass down the inside. It looks like he can do so this time, and it's all done. And it's really, that was an easy pass. Yeah. There was no resistance whatsoever from the BMW, and probably wisely so too.
But as I say, Vanderlei still leads his class then, Pro-Am. That's the intention, to score the victory in that. He will try and fight back if he can, because again, the BMW has got good grunt coming out of turn 3. The Audi given an extra amount of weight coming into the races for today compared to yesterday in qualifying, so it's a heavier car, but even so, it is still the car to beat, especially when you put the European champions behind the wheel, Doncha and Moller Madsen in the lead. Now here is Finlay Hutchinson on the back of Jerome Policon, so the British driver going for third place against the very experienced Frenchman now.
Yes, it'll be slightly a more difficult task for Finlay Hutchinson to find a way past the Mercedes, particularly with just 7.5 minutes in this race. There's not going to be any favours given by Jerome Policon to fourth place McLaren, so it's going to be a lot of hard work and a lot of good thinking behind the wheel. The Mercedes is such a good package, whichever way you look at it. McLaren in GT4 form, clearly a more successful package than it might have been in its initial configuration in GT3. Finlay Hutchinson using it to its best effect. Little Alpine back up again.
Yeah. So Sonsinena is now fifth at the expense of Michel Blancpain. So he's going a lot better than Pierre-Alexandre Jean seemed to be able to go in that car. Sonsinena might even be able to get onto terms with these two. Hutchinson has a good look at the inside of Policon, thinks better of it, trying to force a mistake out of Jerome, who may not have the quickest car, but he's got a wide one, and for the moment he's hanging on to that place. But Sonsinena behind is catching up.
Well, Policon ain't going to give it up. I'm sure you, it's going to have to be a pass. That'll be a big commitment from Finlay Hutchinson. He's close. But again, once the Mercedes gets pointed in a straight line, it's got good performance, got good traction off all these corners. Difference in straight line speed, probably not massive between the two cars, but just the difference maybe between the wheel and the person behind it.
So here is Policon hanging on to that place. Just quickly as the battle comes onto the pit straight, remember the number 72 Mercedes that had to make a stop-go penalty for being too short on the pit stop? Well, its stop-go penalty was too short as well. So there's another penalty looming for that car. As for third place, Policon and Hutchinson come side by side over the line. Policon on the inside line, Hutchinson just with his nose in front. Who is going to be the last of the late breakers down towards turn 1? Policon's got the inside line, Hutchinson the outside for turn 1, the inside for turn 2. No, he has to slot back in behind.
He was always going to be in the wrong part of the racetrack once they got deep into the braking zone, because Policon could use the brake pedal to modulate his entry speed, and if he ran wide, he still had the McLaren on the outside, and the McLaren was always going to be subject to what Policon and the Mercedes wanted to do. Let's look again. The head-on view coming down into turn 1. McLaren moves over to the centre of the road to try maybe intimidate Policon, but he has nothing to do with it. But at that point, it all changed from it might have been marginal advantage to McLaren to consolidation from the Mercedes, and that's going to be a difficult pass now. 5 minutes of this race remaining. Unless he can force Policon to make an error, and with the experience and background he has, he probably hasn't written a few of the tricks, let alone knows them all.
But Hutchinson's going to have a go on the inside at 9, and if he stays there, the inside at 10 is going to give him the place.
But the undercut, watch for the undercut. Hutchinson's managed to keep the car, but look, he immediately goes to block the Mercedes, making a now under accelerate, and Policon's hand comes up. Dukes are lower. What are you doing?
I suspect he thinks too much curb might have been used there. However, Finlay Hutchinson has gone through, and Jerome Policon did not like that.
He used a bunch of curb on the inside at turn 11 as well.
And look behind them, Pierre Sonsinena in the Alpine is there. He's getting a little bit nearer. Pressing on all the time, isn't he, there? In the French tricolor colours, carried on the Alpine. So Finlay Hutchinson then up into 3rd place. And of course 2nd in the Silver Cup now. Pro-Am still being led by Vanderlei, 2nd Blancpain, 3rd Gauchier Rodest. Another flash of the lights from Pierre Sonsinena. Why do drivers do that? Because nobody's going to move out of their way. Because of course do come through.
Because they can.
Right.
You know, you assume that it's smart to flash your lights and try and cause a distraction. It's a bit like driving on the motorways today. It's almost forbidden. You're almost considered a criminal to flash your lights. What you do is you put your indicator on and get that in the mirror of the car that you want to pass.
Yeah.
Until that becomes a criminal offence as well.
Well, for now, Sonsinena is doing nothing criminal. He's doing something very rapid, and that is his last lap was a 2:15.5. Policon a 2:18.8. So Pierre Sonsinena is much the quickest man on the circuit.
Yeah, that was all due to the change of positions between 3rd and 4th. 33 Bullet has gone wrong. Now, why is he reversed into the gravel? Why did he put the brakes on to stop that occurring?
That's Stephen Patrick at the wheel, and the Bullet car may have shot itself in the foot, because from 11th he's off the road.
Here we
Stephen
go.
Patrick's dig himself in.
And it's going to go, the flat underside of the car is just going to be now absolutely beached, and there's no way that car can come out of there by going forward. That is for sure. And is it in a vulnerable place or not? With only just under 3 minutes of this race remaining, you can see the positions 3rd, 4th, and the little Alpine pops up in 5th. And as you pointed out, David, it's running quicker than the 2 cars directly ahead of it, and it could get into position. Wouldn't it be amazing if it gets up behind the Mercedes and just nicks that position?
So there's going to be one more lap for them at the end of this. Yellow flags at turn 12, where we've just seen the Mercedes go off the road. But look, I mean, Sonsinena is absolutely flying. In the first sector alone, he's taken half a second out of Jerome Policon, and he only had to make up 1.5 in order to get onto the tail of him. So he's nearly there. He's almost now within striking distance. And as I say, there's one more lap at the end of the race, as now battle is joined between 37, Philippe Cadore, and Fabien Machel in number 42 Audi. This is for 8th place, Pro-Am drivers both.
So the Audi makes a different approach to taking turn 10 and benefits from doing so. Looks maybe to think about a move under braking up into turn 11, but not sufficiently close to the rear of the BMW to make that one stick. We go back to race leader, and there it is. Maladoncha comes across the line. He was 2.6 seconds ahead. The last lap is going to be 3.8 seconds, but is he going to be, how much over the 3rd place? McLaren, well, 10 or so seconds behind that 2nd place, but it's all about 3rd, 4th and 5th. And there they are coming down, almost as one as they come down into the braking into turn 1.
On the last lap, and there is Finlay Hutchinson then for 3rd, Jerome Policon 4th. His task now is to keep Pierre Sonsinena behind him, and the Alpine takes a very tight line out of turn 1 to try perhaps to get a different shot out of turns 2 and 3.
Well, what he did, he shortened the distance he had to travel, first of all, and secondly, he got on the throttle really early and was able to drive the car and make that straight cut through turn 2 and turn 3. So he's even closer now to the back of the 88 Mercedes than he would have been before he entered turn 1.
One of the nice things about the GT4 International Cup is that we're seeing people in it that we haven't seen in the European Series this year, and therefore you start to appreciate how good they are. Sonsinena is definitely one of those drivers.
I would love to see more of them, because I've been really delighted to see this performance. I think it's great to see another brand coming in, a minority, a small, I call them boutique brands, with the backing of the giant Renault empire, but nevertheless it is a brand that was infamous and famous in rallying way back in the 70s, coming back as a super production road car, but in making an even more outstanding little race car. And I say little because physically it's a much smaller car than its competition.
Absolutely right. And there is the Audi R8, which again, when you compare it to the GT3 counterpart that's here, that looks tiny as well, but see one of these parts in the paddock, they do look big cars. But this is the leader, and there's Sonsinena makes a move on the inside at turn 11, trying to get past the Mercedes. He's got the inside line all the way through the corner. This is for fourth. He's going to go through. He's on the outside line at turn 12. Can he get the undercut for turn 13? Jerome Policon runs him out wide, and Sonsinena has to slot back in behind. The checkered flag is at the ready for Milan Doccia then, who is coming down towards turn 14. He is set to win the second qualifying race in the GT4 International Cup, and he will do so by quite some margin in the end of potentially over 4 seconds given his pace. Milan Doccia comes through. Checkered flag falls. It is 2 from 2 for the Phoenix Racing Audi duo. Milan Doccia and Nicolai Müller-Madsen win qualifying race 2 in the GT4 International Cup from Gilles Vanderlei and Enzo Guibert, who win in Pro-Am. And third is going to be Finlay Hutchinson. And look at this, it's a drag race for fourth. Side by side, the little Alpine gets his nose in front and on the line. Yes! The Alpine has done it. And it wins fourth place battle by 31 thousandths of a second. How about that?
We're not meant to be partisan, but you can't help but cheer for the little team, or the little, the David and the Goliath.
Well, it's partly the fact that it's up from 20th on the grid to do it anyway. It's just a great drive, and it didn't sparkle in the first stint. So Pierre Sonsinena fourth, Jérôme Policon fifth, sixth Gauthier Rodest there, and down to seventh in the end. The car that led the first stint throughout, Michael Blanchimont, Stephen Palette. Here for eighth, Fabien Michel and Greg Gilbert. Ninth will be Philippe Cadori and Dan Wells. James Holder and Matt George set for 10th place. That was a slow burn of that race. It was pretty calm to begin with, but then in the second stint, more and more happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love. I call it the underdog or whatever. Yeah. I just love those scenarios where you see the big, powerful, the Mercedes, which is maybe to some degree the class of the field.
And there is the AM battle being resolved, and Anthony and Piotr Chodzin win from Peter Larsen and Johan Rosen by 0.226 of a second. So just like in race one, even though it's a different winner, the AM Cup, very competitive again.
I mean, look, you can't get any closer than that. I mean, great battles all the way through between the different categories, as well as within each category. There it is again, just seeing the Alpine just, I mean, on the straight line, how it managed to outdrag the Mercedes off turn 14 is something I need an answer to.
31 thousandths of a second. Doesn't get much closer than that. Brilliant stuff. Pierre Sonsinena then taking fourth, Jérôme Policon fifth, but another win for Milan Doccia and Nicolai Müller-Madsen there, the Audi, the winning car in the background, off the road to get the pickup on the tyres to boost the weight. And disappointment for quite a lot of the field, because we lost one car before the start. We're not going to see the BMW again of Piquet and Van der Ende, but 6 cars failing to get to the end with either damage and or mechanical maladies. And there the cars turn off the road into the Oasis pit lane and paddock, and therefore self-contained over there rather than come to the main paddock. They will for the final, I think, because that's where the podium will be done, but they go straight to their own Parc Fermé area within that separate pit lane. So this Bapco Bahrain GT Festival giving us some very good racing, and there's one more race to look forward to within the GT4 International Cup. That's going to be on track, getting underway at 17:45, and that's in about an hour and 3/4 time. I haven't got that long before it gets underway, but there will be another race for the GT4 cars. Qualifying race 2, won by the Phoenix Racing Audi. Milan Doccia and Nicolai Müller-Madsen win from Gilles Vanderlei and Enzo Guibert, who win in Pro-Am. Third, Finlay Hutchinson and Matt Nicol-Jones and Pierre Sonsinena and Pierre-Alexandre Jean take fourth, ahead of Jérôme Policon and Thomas Drouet, with sixth, Gauthier Rodest and Max Hesse. Seventh for the Saint-Eloque, Michel Blanchimont, Stephen Palette, spinning Audi from the sister car of Fabien Michel and Greg Gilbert. 3Y Technologies BMW taking ninth, ahead of the Generation AMR Super Racing Aston Martin 10th. To win the AM class, 11th, the Scuderia Veloba Corsa Maserati of Anthony and Piotr Chodzin from Peter Larsen and Johan Rosen, and then Luc and Lisette Brahms finishing third in the AMs with the Las Moras Racing McLaren. And only 14 get to the end. The penalised Mercedes of Mats Tidström coming home in 14th spot, sharing that car with Eric Behrens, but that was, of course, given the stop-go penalty. In the gravel, the Bullet Racing Mercedes, dramas with the front opening and a damper breakage for the KTM Crossbow. That was a retirement. Also out of the race was the Brett Strum, Mark Carl's run BMW. Out as well the second Alpine with damage. The sports car boutique Porsche never really got into the race. Damage for the similar car of the TFT squad, and a non-starter. The BMW Team France by Equus Motorsports entry as well. So those are the results of the second qualifying race. We now look forward to the main race, to the final that's coming up a little bit later on in the afternoon here in Bahrain. But for now, honours to Milan Doncia and Nikolai Müller-Madsen, and their number 33 Mercedes being hoiked out of the way, out of the gravel. That's the car that Stephen Patrick plonked off the road, and although it's now been retrieved, so the team has got a bit of work to do in a pretty short space of time to make sure that that is race ready in anticipation for the final. And there are quite a few teams in a similar situation here, trying to make sure that their cars are good to go. Stephen Patrick, okay, was a bit red-faced. Marshall's having taken the car out of the gravel. Hop clear. And our second qualifying race for the GT4 International Cup then at a close, as the teams, as I say, now start to prepare themselves for the final coming up a little bit later on in the afternoon. So let's have a look at the highlights then of qualifying race 2. Another busy grid of plenty of variety, ready to do battle over 60 minutes. And drivers wished well, ready for the off. The immaculate Porsche number 222 was not immaculate for long, because that ended up with quite a bit of damage after just the first corner. When the lights changed, the field accelerated away down to turn 1. 3 wide for the lead, 3, 4, 5 wide in mid-pack, as everybody went for the same bit of real estate. Losing out badly from the front of the grid was Greg Gilbert. He lost lots and lots of places. The worst was to come for the Antoine Leclerc Alpine. Tipped into a big spin by Gilbert. Lots of damage down to the rear of the Alpine, and for that Gilbert got a drive-through penalty, but the Alpine was out of the race with lots of damage, and the team with a big repair job ready to get the car out for the final. Plenty of good racing going on early doors as Gilbert fought with Andy Merrick, keeping behind him Reinhard Koffler, until a damper broke, and that affected the whole front mechanism of the bodywork. It popped open, and Koffler was an early retirement from the race. Max Hessert was coming under attack from Pierre-Alexandre Jean, as up front, looking good up front, was the BMW of Enzo Guibert. Gilles Vanderlei took the car over to lead into the second stint. Andy Merrick doing a decent job in the Mercedes, and 51 Ginetta again in the mix for AM honours, as the Maserati led from the Mercedes. In other words, Piotr Kodzin ahead early on of Eric Behrens. Recovering Greg Gilbert, Fabien Michel gaining places. Finlay Hutchison brought the McLaren in to give way to Matt Nicol-Jones. And Stephen Patrick was on the case of the Richard Rodès Audi, hunting down places as the top two came in. Stephen Palette had dominated the first stint, but then Michel Blanchimont on his outlap lost it. Around he went at turn 8 and gave away the race lead. Attention then switched to Pierre Sonsinena in the little Alpine, who was absolutely flying, diving up on the inside of car after car, picking off place after place, as Philippe Cadore had a big lose ahead of James Holder, but he survived it just and battled his way to the end, finishing in 9th place. For the race lead, Milan Doncia got closer and closer to Gilles Vanderlei, made his move. Further back, there was a brave effort by Finlay Hutchison to try to go and take 3rd place away from Jérôme Policon. Pierre Sonsinena catching up all the time. Milan Doncia, though, was on target for a second win with Nikolai Müller-Madsen, second to Gilles Vanderlei and Enzo Guibert. But the real hero was Pierre Sonsinena, who took 4th on the line, just like that. And we get ready for the final later on. For now, from John Watson and David Addison, bye-bye from Bahrain.